Hi everyone, I'm Dina with Mills Family Gardening. Welcome back to our channel. We live in North Texas, Zone 8A. And in this video, I would like to talk about how to start any kinds and size of seeds. To make it simple, I divided the seeds into three size groups. The first group is large seeds, the second one is small, and the third one is tiny. The large group are seeds like corn, okra, and beans, and those are generally planted outside directly in the ground after all danger of frost has passed, because their root system gets so large so fast that it's really hard to contain them in a small container. That's why those seeds are planted straight into the ground. For example, I have some corn seeds. This is just an example. I'm just going to plant them here to show how I would plant large seeds. This is not their permanent spot. For large seeds, they usually are planted at the depth of ½ inch. What I do, I usually put them on top of the soil and simply push them into the ground if the ground is soft. If the ground is kind of hard, like right now, I usually dig a small hole with a stick or anything you have, about ½ inch to 1 inch deep, and drop the seeds into the ground and simply cover them with the soil. And of course, after you plant all your seeds, you need to water them and keep the soil moist. With the second group of seeds, which are small, and those seeds are tomato, pepper, asparagus seeds, I usually use bigger containers this size. For example, the square, I think they're 2 by 2 and 4 inches tall, or I reuse this container that I got in nursery with a plant. I use larger container for small seeds because the root system gets big so fast that if I started them in smaller cells, in a couple of weeks I would have to move them into bigger containers, and that would be more work. Small seeds are generally planted at a depth of ½ inch deep, so I make a little indentation with a pencil in the soil and I simply drop the seeds into the soil. I use about 3-4 seeds per hole, and then I simply cover them, and then I keep the soil moist. Another important rule for starting seeds is before you plant your seeds, make sure your soil is moist. For that, you need to fill up the containers in advance and either pour water on top of the soil or pour the water straight into the seedling tray and leave them overnight or for several hours, and that way the soil soaks up the water and becomes moist. Let's talk about the third group of seeds, which are tiny, and those seeds can be thyme, canterbury bells, mint seed. For tiny seeds, I usually use smaller cell trays because their root system stays small for a while, and I can keep them in these trays until it's time to transplant them outside, so I don't need to move them into larger containers. So for small seeds, I don't even bury them into the ground. I simply take the seeds and sprinkle them on top of the soil like that, and I leave them on top of the soil, and then I take my spray bottle and simply spray them with a spray bottle twice a day until the seeds start sprouting. There are several types of growing medium that you can use to start your seeds. The first one could be seed starting mix. Some people like using coconut coir, and then some people like using potting soil. If you decide to use seed starting mix or coconut coir, make sure to start fertilizing your seeds once their second set of leaves have formed, because those growing mediums don't have any fertilizer or feed for the seedlings, and that is why we need to use extra fertilizer. I personally like using potting soil. I've been doing it for several years and it's been working fine. I use it even for the tiniest of seeds. They germinate and they grow just fine in that potting soil, and I use it because it feeds the seedlings for 3 months. That way I don't need to fertilize them during their growth indoors. Now let's talk about using supplemental things like heating mat or a dome. You can use a heating mat and a dome to help speed up the germination process, but you don't have to buy them if you don't want to or if you don't have them. I've been starting seeds without a heating mat or a dome for several years, and they've been germinating and sprouting just fine. The only thing to remember is that without a heating mat or a dome, your seeds will take longer to sprout, but eventually they will sprout. So if you don't have those supplemental things, make sure to start your seeds a little bit earlier. If you need additional heat for your seeds, you can simply place them on top of the fridge and they will stay pretty warm up there. If you decide to use a dome for your seedlings, make sure you put the tray away from the sun, because then it will get too hot in there and the seeds might simply rot. And also make sure to check under the dome every day, maybe twice a day, to make sure that your seeds have sprouted, and if they have sprouted, remove the dome completely and put the seedlings under the grow light right away. I personally don't like using a dome. I like to see whenever my seeds start sprouting, and also I like to keep the seeds in the soil under the grow light. That way, as soon as they start emerging from the soil, they see that bright light and they don't get leggy. Make sure to keep your seedlings either in a sunny window that gets at least 6 hours of sunlight a day, or keep them under the grow light. And make sure to keep your grow lights on for 17 hours and off for 7 hours. And keep your lights about 1 inch away from your seeds and seedlings. After your seedlings have grown and all danger of frost has passed, it's time to harden off your seedlings. And I make it a simple process. I simply set them on our back porch that gets shade all day, and then after that day I usually set them in this spot where we get dappled sun. That way the seedlings are out of the sun, they don't get burnt by the sun. And also I choose a mild day to put them outside. I make sure to keep them away from hard rain, and I just keep them in this spot for a few days, and usually they're fine after that. So this way I don't bring the seedlings in and out. It saves me time and energy. I've been doing this for several years and it's been working just fine for the seedlings. And if you need to harden off your seedlings earlier and there's still frost, just bring them inside when it's cold and bring them back outside when it warms up. After your seedlings have spent a few days outside in a dappled sun, it's time to plant them into the ground or in a large container that's going to stay outside. I usually transplant the seedlings in the evening after the sun set, and then the seedlings have a whole night to get used to being in the soil in their new spot. The most important thing about starting seeds is to actually start them and start experimenting. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you plant seeds, the better you will become, and the whole process will become simpler. Even the best gardeners still make mistakes, and they keep learning year after year. I hope this video was very helpful for you and you will actually start growing seeds. If you have any questions, please ask, and we'll appreciate it if you could like our video and share it. And have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.